lot of effort in baseball to move forward. And change is hard, but I think people will look back on this agreement on both sides as something that really propelled the game forward in a very meaningful way.
Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name is Dan Barreiro. I'm finally back. And Justin Gaard is with me as usual. Lori Fisher gets the whole thing started on what should be, I think, it's kind of a toy department-ish version of Enough Said today. We're going very sportsy, right, Lori?
Yeah, did you miss us the last 2 weeks?
I definitely did.
While you were out there cheering on your sister and your basketball team?
I'm afraid, though, I wasn't missed. That's what I heard.
I just realized it had been a couple of weeks since you've been here, but yeah, we had a good time. Yeah. We had a very good time.
I felt some FOMO. I'm not going to deny it, but I liked where I was.
And you were holding out until baseball got a deal done. That was your last stand.
That was part of it.
When baseball gets a deal back, then Dan Barreiro will come back, and here we are.
Perfect timing. It's over, that 99-day lockout. MLB owners and players made a tentative deal this week. Opening day will be Thursday, April 7th. Spring training expected late next week, so get ready for that full 162-game season. There are some changes, including expanding playoffs to 12 teams instead of 10. And when I said tentative, I mean they have a deal. Dan?
Well, yeah, and what's weird is we were told, I think 2 times, that, well, we're having to slice away part of the schedule. Yeah. And then we get a deal done and say, we're going to find a way to get the whole thing in with, apparently, not only doubleheaders added, but 9-inning doubleheaders are back as well, which is good. I think the number I saw, Guardsy, and these numbers don't really mean a lot to most of us, is that this is an $11 billion industry. And as, I guess, much trouble as one could say relative to football and even basketball, baseball has been, that's still a lot of money. $11 billion is a lot of money. And so the moral of the story is they were going to find a way to divvy it up, right? It took a little more time than necessary. The owners probably started a little bit too late. We can argue about who won, who lost, all that kind of nonsense. But in the end, you've got an $11 billion industry. You're going to find a way to make it work. And ultimately, that's why the 2 parties decided that, let's get on with this thing.
Well, it's because it's an $11 billion industry that I was more on the player side when the owners and the commissioner were saying, things are real tight out here sometimes. It's tough out here. And then the Braves had to release, because they're kind of a publicly owned team, that they made like $500 million last year. And you go, okay, it's not that tough out here for the owners. I get it. They had all the leverage, and they used it, and you don't become a billionaire by just throwing away money. But now we actually, Dan, get to maybe, hopefully, sometime focus on things to move the game forward on the field. Now that they've gotten apparently their tricky part, getting the game on the field. Now how do you fix it so that people under 40 want to watch? Because if they want to remain an $11 billion industry and maybe even grow in the next decade or so, which I'm sure they do, and jump on these streaming services and jump on social media and everything that all the other leagues are doing, that's what we got to start working on now, right, is making this more appetizing for people younger than 40 years old, because that's the demographic that they're missing right now.
There's no question. And supposedly we are moving closer to a belief that at least as soon as the 2023 season, which is still not soon enough for me, they're going to the pitch clock.
Yes.
They actually are going to institute a pitch clock.
Move it along.
It's 14 seconds with nobody on, maybe 19 seconds with people on. I don't know the exact numbers. The game itself deserves a lot of the scorn that it's given, because the pace of play, even for those of us who understand that it's not a game that you want to have a clock on the way other games do, you have to, because everybody moves too slow. Pitchers are in and out. Pitching changes are made every 15 seconds. And the other reason to have some scorn for this game right now is the local baseball team product itself.
Yeah.
It's been awful the last couple years. I'm going to give you these names real quick. See if they do anything for you.
Yeah.
Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan,
No.
Dylan Bundy,
No.
Randy Dobnak, and Lewis Thorpe. Right now,
that's your rotation.
That's your rotation.
Yeah.
That is not a professional Major League Baseball operation rotation. It just isn't. To that extent, I would say to fans, don't go and endorse and validate that nonsense.
Enough
now,
said.
they have some time to add some pieces, but most of the good free agents are already gone.
Yeah.
So now we can concentrate on the team itself and whether there's any sign they're going to get serious about really trying to be competitive at the major league level.
I do like, by the way, that every team's going to play every team moving forward. I think that's kind of cool in the major league. That's kind of cool, because maybe you can nationalize this thing again, because it's gotten completely regional.
DH, of course.
Yes.
Also
some of the rule changes I think are good. I even like the postseason. Give everybody a trophy. Why not?
Okay, moving on. Do you think it's cool that Aaron Rodgers is back?
No.
Well, he's sticking. He's not
with Green
back.
Bay.
He never,
No,
I guess,
this
left.
is terrible
but
news.
He is sticking with Green Bay Packers and says he's very excited about it. I'm not sure if they actually said how much. I know word on the street was 4 years, $200 million, making him the highest paid NFL
fake news, he said.
Player. And that's right. So I haven't seen like a for sure number, but I know it's not great for Vikings. Let's talk Rodgers first, and then what it means to the Vikings. I'll interrupt you in a few minutes on that. But just first, Rodgers. Justin.
Well, I just want to skip right to the Vikings part because it is devastating, but we won't. Aaron Rodgers got everything that he wanted. The year-long pout session was successful. He got his old coach. He's keeping all of his guys, even though they're taking less money and restructuring their contracts. It doesn't appear he's going to need to, and he will probably finish his career as a Green Bay Packer, which does differentiate him from some of the other greats, which probably was important to him, I would think, at the end, that he wasn't going to bounce around. I don't buy for a second that retirement was actually on the table for him. I would consider that he was most recently thinking about popping around, maybe to Denver, maybe to Tennessee, but he got everything that he wanted here. He's got his old quarterback coach. He's got his guys. Whether it's $200 million, $150 million, $175 million, whatever it is, he's getting rich, and he's going to be in Green Bay for a really long time, which, as we'll get to, is not good news for anybody in the state of Minnesota.
He is, I believe, will be classified as the first quarterback emperor combination in the history of the National Football League. He is not just quarterback in Green Bay, he is emperor.
Yes.
They are Goody eventually might actually be there might be a shot of Gutekunst, who is their general manager, kissing his feet. They have turned everything over to him because they made him mad a year ago. And as we talked about on this show, they made some mistakes.
Yes.
But now, because of those mistakes, they've turned everything over to him. Any player he wants, he gets. Any assistant coach he wants, he gets. And, he's that good. I would probably do it too, but there is potentially a trap here where you turn everything over and give one person that much power. It just might go to his head.
Well, it's already to his head.
Yeah, exactly it. But that's basically what's happened here is he is now running he is the emperor.
He is.
Of the Green Bay Packer organization,
well, you wonder
not just the coach.
If they have any regret that they didn't do something similar a couple of years ago when maybe they wouldn't have had to do all of these things. Because that was the whole thing that never made any sense to me. Like, I can see moving on from a quarterback if he's aging, if he's not playing very well. If he'd been somewhere 20 years like Tom Brady had been at New England, I get it. Even then, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I understand it. They could have done this probably a year and a half, 2 years ago and saved themselves a lot of money, saved themselves a lot of trouble, and, like you say, maintain some semblance of control of the organization. Because now it's A-Rod now. I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, they have no hammer left anymore. And by the way, he is that good, so he is that worth it.
Well, and we keep talking about what does this mean. What we really care about is what does it mean for the Vikings. With him staying, the Packers remain the favorite in the NFC North. And does the news play a role in the Vikings and the future of Kirk Cousins? I know we keep bringing up Kirk every week, but it is on all of Vikings fans' minds, I'm sure. So, Dan?
Well, let me start it out by saying this, that the Vikings, there are many, many teams, including your Minnesota Vikings, who would welcome the opportunity to kiss the feet of a quarterback as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yes.
That's the dilemma here.
Absolutely.
Even though it ended badly in the postseason, and he had some responsibility for that, you're going to given the quarterback landscape, you're going to take your chances with him every time. And that gets back to the so-called Cousins conundrum here, is that I don't think it's not just that he's not as good as Aaron Rodgers, because very few quarterbacks are.
Right.
I just still don't even think he's a top 10 QB. And so I like to think of this being an energizing moment, that now that Rodgers is staying, now that Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz have moved on to different places, Cousins remains the last viable, legitimate quarterback who might be available, if you make him available, to some of those other teams that are still desperately looking for a quarterback who is as good as Cousins could be. And you could say, well, then, Dan, why don't you want to keep him? Because I know too much about him, and I know too much about what his contract does to this team's present and future. So I'm in the group that says, to this new regime that says it's very creative, and they know what they're doing, and they're going to think out of the box. Be aggressive with making him available. You don't give him away, but see what you can get for him. And if you can get something legit, I absolutely move on him, even if it means I've got to go to not real favorable plan B for the upcoming season.
Well, as one of the guys that endorsed the move on the front end, even endorsed the first extension, I'm at that point too, because you're playing for second place in the NFC North and you don't have the roster to match up. The Cousins move made sense initially because the roster was at a certain place. That's why it makes sense now in Indianapolis. That's why it might make sense in Tennessee. Not sure about Pittsburgh, but other teams are going to be interested in Kirk because they have the other pieces in place. The Vikings don't have that anymore. We'll talk about it as free agency starts here in the next week or so and the NFL offseason really heats up because, believe it or not, it hasn't even really heated up yet. This is like the quarterback carousel part of it. The Vikings are not in a place where they need to be paying a quarterback $45 million because I don't think they're close to a championship caliber team. I don't think they're close to a Super Bowl team. We've seen that the last couple of years with him. The defense is only getting older. The offense still has too many holes. So this would be a good time to refresh, reset, reboot, change everything, and let the new Wunderkinds find their guy. It's difficult. We see it every year.
Yeah.
Teams are looking for quarterbacks, and if you don't have one, you're desperately trying to get one, so it sounds weird to get rid of a guy who's, like you say, not top 10, I would even admit that, but certainly top 15-ish and can make some good plays and had won a playoff game here. But it is probably time to just clear the decks on everything and move on.
Rick Spielman in an interview finally told the truth, even though he didn't answer the question directly. He's asked directly, can Kirk Cousins lead a team to a Super Bowl? And the answer 2 minutes later was no, even though it took him 2 minutes to get to it. That is that important. 33, 31-1, I believe, is his number, something like that since he's been
Up
here.
next on Enough Said, the Wild bouncing back and the winning Wolves. You guys are going to talk about both those teams this week. Hot. On Enough Said. You ready for it?
I can't wait.
Exciting. Bring the T-shirt gun.
Beasley looking for another, and he's got 6 in the quarter.
On fire Wednesday night against Oklahoma City, Malik Beasley, you just heard it, hit 6 3-pointers in the first quarter, setting a franchise record with 11. In the game, the Timberwolves no longer a bubble playoff team. In fact, do we say, are they the hottest team in the NBA right now, or is that going too far?
Calm down.
Are they?
Winning streak, I think they're tied with the Celtics. They have the same, whatever it is, six-game winning streak.
Celtics have been on fire for like 2 months, by the way.
And 1 game away from 10 games over 500, Dan.
Think about it.
Well, here's what's interesting early, or at this point, is that they're playing a lot of bad teams. They're basically playing some tanking teams.
Correct.
And so it's a reversal, because usually we're the tanking team.
Almost
whether
always.
we want to be or we're trying or not. We're that bad. Now we're the team that's taking advantage of the tanking teams and destroying them. And you never have to apologize for that. There's nothing wrong with that. I do want to get into one other aspect of this before we talk more about the basketball itself.
Yep.
Attendance numbers are up.
Yes.
There is the dawning, I think, of a reawakening of the fans, the basketball fans in Minnesota. You know this, Guardsy, as well as I do. This is not just the state of hockey.
Right.
This is a damn good basketball town. People in the hockey community don't want to accept it, but it hasn't had a chance to show itself for so much of the time that the Wolves have been here, and frankly, even at the college level, men's basketball.
Right.
So the fact is, what we're being reminded of is if you put a legitimate product, and in this case an exciting product, still got some issues to get better, but a good young club that wins more than it loses, which is revolutionary here.
Yep.
People are going to show, they're going to get excited, and they're going to epoxy themselves to this product.
Well, and we talked about the D'Angelo Russell aspect of it.
Yes.
When he called him out, a month or so ago? And then he backed it up, which was always the important part of it, right? You can't call out the fans for being quiet, even though, that was a Sunday afternoon against Detroit. So I don't necessarily blame the fans if they hadn't quite had their coffee yet.
Most people would nap through that.
But he backed it up. And now it's a thing, and now people do feel like they're a part of it. So it is, I mean, I've been to more Wolves games this year than probably the last decade, and it's not recognizable. Like if you grab somebody from 2012 who's with Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer from Saturday Night Live and popped him back in at Target Center, he would say, where am I? This place makes no sense. Now, not every game is a player grabbing a T-shirt gun like Patrick Beverley and firing off T-shirts into the crowd, but the vibe even before the last month or so has been better. People are into it. People like it, and the team is doing their part. They're doing, through this stretch, exactly what we asked them to do, which is show us you're serious and handle these bad teams. If you want to be a playoff team, this is what you do, and they have done that. Now, starting tomorrow night, specifically perfectly. The schedule does tighten up, and we'll see how they handle that, especially when they do get into the postseason. I think their magic number is like 4 right now. So they are a playoff team, and now let's see. They've taken the step that we wanted them to take.
I also like how I think Chris Finch, much more self-aware than D'Lo,
no question,
is saying, look, we got to keep giving them a reason to show up. We appreciate what they're doing. It's a smarter move, and it's also a more self-aware move because we've talked about the fact that the fans here have a lot of scar tissue. Real quick, schedule. You mentioned the schedule, Guardsy. Starting in 8 days, you got Miami tomorrow night, but in 8 days from now, Bucks, Mavericks, Suns, Mavericks again, Celtics, Raptors, Denver Nuggets.
Buckle up.
That's the stretch.
Buckle up.
That will be an interesting test, and we'll have a much better idea about this team being what it says it is more serious than just about a cute little winning streak. We want to be taken seriously. We'll know a lot more at the end of that stretch.
I know when Dan's glasses go on, there's another 30 seconds for the segment.
Yeah, that's like the wind-up. We need a pitch clock for the glasses.
Yeah, earlier this week, the Wild were fragile, and then they go on to beat the Rangers 5-2, and then Thursday night they beat the Red Wings in Detroit 6-5 after a big fight, including the goalies and a shootout. I always tell it name drop. My brother was there. He said, I asked him what the vibe was, if it was on point. He said, calm until the brawl, and then everyone was booing Dumba because of that fight. But they have their last road game tonight until April, Justin, so they're going to be at home for a while.
They are going to be at home, and hopefully that is a healthy place for them. They've gotten some much-needed victories, and truthfully, even the other night, I mean, just getting to overtime so you knew you were going to get a point was going to be helpful. They're still giving up way too many goals. We saw that against Detroit. And a lot of it, too, is just sloppiness offensively. Reckless turnovers that lead to odd man rushes and things like that. I think Talbot's been better this week, but he's been an issue the last month. They're not in desperation mode, but they're in scramble mode, and they don't have any margin for error left because of the last month. So every night with points is important. The fact that they had one for sure and then were able to win in the shootout to get 2, that was critical. And they're going to have to take advantage, as Lori said, of this homestand that they have now coming up, because they are definitely on the grind, much more so than we thought they would be about a month ago.
You could say, they in winning most recently, they resorted, though, to the tactics that we liked in them, which is they're incredibly explosive.
Yes.
My concern, once again, is to assume that you can win the right share of games, especially in the postseason, counting on 6-5 victories or 7-6 victories.
Right.
It's rarely the way it works in the National Hockey League, at least in the postseason, and that's still where you're exactly right. They've got to tighten it up. Just enough. They're not going to be, I don't think they're capable of being a great defensive team.
Right.
This is an offensive team, largely. But you have to limit the blunders and mistakes because as good as they are flipping on the offense, as they finally did again in the most recent game, I'm not sure it's realistic to expect down the road.
It'll be interesting now as the trade deadline approaches what Bill Guerin does, because his team, we've gone from how many pieces can you add to what rent of players can we ship out to how has Bill Guerin evaluated this last month? That's what I'm really fascinated in, and how he handles this trade deadline, to maybe give some supplements or say, you know what, we're going to ship some guys out and we're going to move on from some guys and we're going to try to fortify, because remember, again, like the next couple of years are going to be painful financially because of the Parise and Suter buyout. So that's why it was so, promising that they were in the mix to the extent that they were a month ago. Maybe they could steal a little mini playoff run this year before things get meaty, because they will have decisions to make this summer too. So how Bill Guerin handles all of that, I'm very fascinated.
The other X factor is goaltending. And, you're not going to change goaltenders at this point. They're stuck with what they have for the rest of this season.
We're going to move on.
And they need Talbot, I think largely, although I think
to be the all-star.
They need Talbot to be the guy they thought they had earlier in the season.
I want to get to one more thing.
Or else the other stuff, it really becomes
I want to get to one more thing. We're getting closer to the Women's Final Four. Minneapolis is hosting it this year, the last week of March. The games, the first weekend of April. This weekend, volunteers are going to learn how they can help tens of thousands of fans here enjoy games and take part in activities. It's the 50th anniversary of Title IX in June, so it's going to be a big part of the celebration. What do you guys think?
Well, that'll be a cool part of it, in all honesty, the 50th. And I know that all kinds of media outlets are already putting together plans for that. ESPN, among them, have already been in town a couple of times with a plan for that. And now we hope that the local angle shows up. We hope that Paige Becker shows up with UConn, because then that takes it to a whole nother stretch. But it's always good to have big events in town, Dan. I think you and I agree on that. We haven't had the women's Final Four since the mid-'90s. Tickets are basically gone. And if UConn ends up coming, or shoot, even if the Iowa Hawkeyes come up from down south with Caitlin Clark, another superstar, it's going to be a busy weekend. It's going to be a wild time. We're already signed up for the dribble, by the way, the kids and I. We're already signed up for the Final Four dribble on Sunday. I know everybody was concerned about that.
The local angle needs to include the local college basketball team, University of Minnesota, okay? And we know the recruiting class is supposed to be, Justin, you could speak to this more than me, tremendous coming in. I worry, men and women this year, about how disconnected I feel.
Man, it's funny you say that.
The men's tournament and the women's tournament. That's the part I don't like. I don't expect championships every year. I'm realistic about where we are, but I want to feel a greater connection. And that's what I think we're looking for. And the ball's got to get moving, no pun intended, starting next season for both of these programs.
I know we're going to talk Whalen and Lightning Round, but I had the same thing. The FOMO of the tournament right now on the men's and women's side, I'm absolutely feeling it as well.
And this is just the conference tournament level. And you're feeling it, absolutely.
And then NCAAs.
Right.
Welcome back to Enough Said. It is lightning round time. The U of M Regents approved a contract extension for Gopher women's basketball coach Lindsay Whalen. She will be here at least until 2025, Justin.
Yeah, I think it's an acknowledgement that they like the recruiting class that's coming in, but they also want to see more before they give
the big one,
the big contract extension, right? And I think the head coach is self-aware enough to understand that and say, I want to stay here, I want to coach here, I want to be able to tell the next recruiting class that I'll be here for a while. And so I think this was just kind of a fair deal for everybody here.
See, I think she's about as self-aware as any coach I know.
I agree.
To that extent, I think she gets exactly what's going on
Next
here, and
up,
it's not surprising.
This Sunday at the X, the Wild will retire its very first number in franchise history, number 9, Mikko Koivu of Finland. He holds a lot of records, Dan.
He also is probably one of the most maligned good players in the history of hockey. Even whether he should have been stripped of the C on his chest long before.
People want to know if the C is going to be on the banner.
But you know what he could do? I think
that?
he could win a face-off, which we could use right now.
Oh, desperately.
We got no face-off issue.
I think his son said, if I play for the Wild, can I have number 9?
No. Oh, did he? He went from overrated to underrated to overrated to underrated. It's amazing.
It's high school hockey.
Again, right?
It's high school hockey tournament time, as we know. Are you guys watching for the games or the hair?
We're watching for the games.
Of course, I put in Maple Grove. There you go.
Yeah, we're watching for the games.
Yeah, look at me and tell me if you think I'm watching for the games or the hair. No, I'm watching for the games.
The games.
I'm a hockey. I'm the hockey ambassador. I'm a hockey purist.
You're a purist.
Do people still really get into the hair thing?
I think they do.
Oh,
Plus, we missed out on it during
We're
COVID.
happy for you.
Were you guys into Alanis Morissette back in the 90s?
Lori.
I of course was.
Yes,
Lori,
I was.
Of course.
Celebrating, I meant to go find my CD and then I forgot it. Celebrating 25 years of Jagged Little Pill album. Tickets are on sale today for July 24th concert at Excel. Special guest Garbage. Justin, do you remember them?
No, nothing about Garbage, very little. I did feel, Lori, like we should go wait in line for tickets like we would have done in 1994 when Jagged Little Pill came out. I was in 7th grade. You were ignoring John Krasinski at Blaine High School. All of us, 25 years, I can't believe it, first of all.
It goes by so
I
fast.
definitely want to be there. I definitely want to be there.
And Dan, of course, would want to be there.
I did. I was a little older
she's
when
great.
she emerged, but I've always
She was tremendous.
enjoyed
That album was amazing. It takes you right back to 94.
It makes me feel old, too, to think it's been 25 years since then. It's crazy.
Yesterday, in the big debate this week on TikTok, Twitter, social media, you name it, are there more doors or wheels in the world? Have you ever pondered that question?
No.
Huh? No.
It's a big, everyone's tweeting about it, right?
Why?
Well, not, I shouldn't say everybody.
Everyone's tweeting about it.
But think about it, like you might have a dresser drawer, but then there's wheels on the drawer. So like,
man, well now
Lori,
I'm not going to
just
sleep.
because everybody else is tweeting about it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything profound.
But which one are you going to go to? What do you say, doors or wheels?
Are there more doors or wheels in the world? We'll cover that next on Good Day. Stay with us.